Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet the Matcha Cream Tote Bag, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. Please go to the link in the description, or you can go to your favorite search engine and simply type in Moogly Matcha Cream Tote, and it should pop right up. Let's get started. To make this pattern, I used a USJ 6mm crochet hook. This one happens to be by Furls. I also used 175 yards of Universal Yarns Vireo, which is a 4 medium worsted weight yarn. I used 2 colors, jade necklace and fluff. I also recommend having a few stitch markers handy anytime you make a crochet pattern. The finished size of this pattern is approximately 13.5 inches wide by 14.5 inches tall, excluding this curve of the handles. Let's take a closer look at our Matcha Cream Tote Bag. The Matcha Cream Tote Bag is made from the bottom up, and we have the bottom right here. It actually starts with 2 simple rows, and then we switch to working in the round. The bottom, I've given some nice, tight single crochet stitches to give us a sturdy base for our bag. Then we switch over to this beautiful mesh stitch. I can see a little bit easier here if I pull it up for you. You can see we've got a series of double crochets, followed by rows of single crochets, and by turning at the end of every row, we get a nice straight seam. This gives us a nice breathable, lightweight bag for the body of our bag, but then at the top, I switched back to our darker color and our single crochet stitches to give us a nice sturdy top for our bag, something easy to hold on to. You can see I've crocheted these handles with the exact same yarn, so you don't have to purchase extra handles if you want to, but if you do want to, it would be easy enough to adjust the top to allow for that. Additionally, you can see the size of the handles I made here. These were just the right length for me, just the right length to sort of put over my arm for shopping, but if you're looking for more of a shoulder length handle for your bag, feel free to make this chain as long as you'd like. Just make sure you do it for both. To begin your Matcha Cream Tote Bag, we start with a row of 42 foundation single crochets. If you would prefer to avoid using the foundation single crochet, you can instead chain 43, skip the chain closest to the hook, and single crochet in each remaining chain. The main thing is to have 42 single crochet stitches at the end of row 1, however you like to achieve that. I also have a separate video tutorial for foundation single crochet on my channel, but let's go over it really quickly right here. You can see I've already made my slip knot and chained 2. I'm now going to insert my hook into the underneath loop of that first chain I made, yarn over and pull up a loop. Take my time to pull that loop all the way up. I want to make sure this loop right here is the same size as my other loop. This loop is going to act as the chain at the bottom of my first single crochet. Then I yarn over and pull a loop up and through, and yarn over and pull through both of those loops to finish. That makes my first foundation single crochet. To make the rest of the row, I'm going to go under the 2 loops at the bottom of the previous stitch. So in this case, it's the first stitch, but for the third stitch, it would be the second, for the fourth, the third, etc. After I go under those 2 loops at the bottom, I yarn over and pull up a loop. This is going to be the chain at the bottom of the second stitch. So I yarn over and pull a loop up through that chain, and then yarn over and pull through 2 to finish my single crochet, like so. Let's do one more. I go under the 2 loops at the bottom of the previous stitch, yarn over and pull up my loop. Once again, you want to take the time to pull that loop up to the same height as the others. Yarn over, pull through the first one, yarn over, and pull through 2 to finish. So keep doing that until you have 42 foundation single crochets. So here I am at the end of my row 1, and you can see it's not a full 42 stitches long, but that's okay. You don't really need a multiple of 42 to make this pattern work, but it's important for setting up those handles. So if you decide to change the size of your bag, you could really start with any length for your first row, but you'll need to adjust where those handles end up. So when you finish making your row 1, then it's time for row 2. And that one's quite easy. We just chain 1 and turn, or turn and chain 1, however you like to do it, and then single crochet in each stitch across. So you should have the same number of stitches in row 2 as you had in row 1. So at the end of row 2, we've finished our rows. We're now going to switch to rounds for the rest of our bag. So to begin our first round, or round 3, we're going to start with a chain 1 and simply, again, single crochet in each stitch across. We have to get across this section before we go the rest of the way around the 2 rows we've previously made. This is one of my favorite ways to start a crochet tote bag. It just gives a really nice, easy way to sort of establish the size of the bottom of your bag before you start building up the sides. And you don't have to bother about trying to figure out ovals or any other complicated shapes. You can just make a rectangle and crochet right all the way around it. So I've made the way here across my row. You should have 42 stitches there if you're making it full size. Might may need to pull up a little bit more yarn here. This is the amount of green I had left over after making the tote bag from one skein, just to give you a little bit of an idea there. So let's see, we've worked our way across. Now we are going to single crochet in the end of row 2. So remember, that's that row we just made before we started this round. So we go right in the end there. I just like to find a couple of strands there right at the end of the row. We put one stitch there, then another stitch at the end of row 1. So again, just like working into the edge here, like when we make a border. And then we keep going around, and now we want to put a stitch, a single crochet, in the bottom of each stitch from row 1. So now we're working across that foundation single crochet row. And this is one of those places where I really like having made foundation single crochets for that first row. You can see how it gives me a really beautiful edge to work into here as I go around. But if you've made the chain, it should still work fine. So we're just going to continue single crocheting across the bottom of our foundation row. On my little sample here, we're almost there. You'll probably need to pause if you're working along here in real time. You'll have a few more stitches than I do. This is going to be a teeny tiny little sample of a tote bag that I'm making today. There we are. My yarn wanted to run away from me a little bit. All right, so now I have single crocheted across that foundation row, our row 1, and now we're back at this end. We know we had 2 rows that we worked across. It'll look like 3, but remember, that one up there is the one we're actually on. That's our round. So we just want to single crochet in the side of each of these rows. You can see that little tail wants to be in the way. I'm just going to grab it there with my pinky and hold it out of the way. So we can put one single crochet in the end there of row 1, another one right in the end of row 2. And now we're able to join with a slip stitch to that first stitch of the round. And here is where I would recommend bringing in those stitch markers. Go ahead and put a stitch marker in the last stitch of the round here before you join. Makes it easier to find, as well as in the first stitch of the round. Here we are, whatever style of stitch markers you like. You can see I've got actually several different brands in there all mixed together. There we go. So now this will help us so much because we are going to be working in what I call turned rounds. We're going to join like working in the round, but then we're also going to turn to work back from the inside of our bag. This is going to give us a much straighter seam. So if the stitch marker is a little in the way, you can move it, but I'm just going to get my hook in there and go ahead and make my slip stitch. And now we are joined. We've made our round 3 and we're ready to make round 4. So now rounds 4 through 12 are all exactly the same. We're going to chain 1 and single crochet all the way around, join and turn. Now I like to chain 1 before I turn, so that's what I've done here. I've chained 1 and now I'm going to turn. And you can leave this end unwoven in. I like to use it as a visual cue. This is the inside or wrong side of the bag. And that is the side we're working from here on our even numbered rounds as we make our base. So this is where having those stitch markers is so handy. You see, I've got my chain 1, I've turned, I'm on the inside of the bag. And if I didn't know better, I might think that's the first stitch of the round, but that's that slip stitch. So having that stitch marker right there lets me know that's where I want to actually go for our first stitch of the round. So once I've worked in there, I'm going to go ahead and move that stitch marker right up. Now this is the first stitch of our round. And from here, I'm simply going to single crochet in each stitch around. We don't want to be increasing at all. If you are making, of course, the full-size bag, according to the instructions, each one of these rounds, as you go all the way around here, should have 88 stitches. Of course, I've got my little sample here. We can just move that end out of the way. But otherwise, it's just single crochet in each stitch around. When you get to the end, join with a slip stitch and turn and work back around the other way. and that will help us build up that really solid single crochet base for our matcha cream tote bag. So here you can see on the original bag those 12 rows built up right here. After that, we're ready for round 13. So here on my little sample, I've built up a little bit of height. For round 13, we want to make sure that we're working back on the right side of the bag. You can see here on the wrong side, I've still got my tail hanging out there to remind me which side is which. So for round 13, we're back on the outside of the bag. We start with a chain 1, and then we are going to back post single crochet in each stitch around. Now, I think did I already have a chain on there? No, I didn't. Let me redo that one here. There we go. Okay. So what we want to do when we're doing back post single crochets is we don't have a lot of post to work around for these stitches. I'm going to go ahead and get this stitch marker out of the way. I'll put it back here in this first stitch. But what I'm going to do is, because it's a back post stitch, I come from behind. And because it's a single crochet, I'm just going to go under those top 2 loops. It's sort of a shallow single crochet, if you will. We go under those top 2 loops and then just go right under the top 2 loops of the next stitch. Getting around the post of a single crochet is kind of next to impossible. Let me do that one more time here. We come from behind, and you can see that's actually that first marked stitch I'm going under right now, and I go into the next one. Yarn over, pull my loop all the way through those 2 stitches. When I've pulled up that loop, yarn over and pull through 2. So that's going to be our first stitch for this round, round 13. There we go. Put my hook back in that loop. And now we want to do the same thing around. So I'm going to go into that same loop we sort of popped out of before, the second one from the previous stitch. So we go under those loops from behind into the next stitch. Yarn over, pull up our loop, finish our single crochet. Now we're going to come from behind through that same stitch we finished in before. Come from behind, go in, yarn over, pull up our loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Come from behind, go in on the next one, yarn over, pull up our loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. And this stitch in this round is purely decorative. If you don't like making this stitch, if you're having a hard time with it, don't worry about it. You can just make another round of regular single crochet. But I think it gives a really nice finished edge to the bottom of our bag. So, like I say, it is optional. But you just want to continue to work all the way around. Make sure you still end up with 88 stitches at the end of this round. And then you can join and finish off, and we'll be ready to start with the mesh section. After you finish round 13, then you can go ahead, as I say, and finish off that end. Now it is time to make the mesh. You can see I still have my first and last stitches marked. I also want you to look closely here. You'll notice the tops of row 12 have been pushed forward. So we want to make sure that we work back here in the tops of round 13 as we make round 1 of our mesh. This is what gives us that really beautiful edge right there. That again is optional. So we're going to take our color B and we want to join to the first stitch with a single crochet. So the way I like to do that for a pattern like this is I'm going to go ahead and put a slip knot on my hook. If it was a garment, I probably wouldn't use a slip knot, but for an accessory like this where I'm less likely to have a knot rubbing against my skin, I like to go ahead and put the slip knot on. It makes it a little bit easier. Then I'm going to find that first stitch. Now for this row, even though round 13 was worked from the right side, we're also beginning from the right side here for round 1 of our mesh. So again, make sure all those ends are on the inside. We've got stitch 1 marked right there. So we're going to go right in there. You see I'm holding onto the tail of my yarn. That makes this loop here on my hook stay nice and steady. Then I yarn over, pull up a loop, and I can give them a little zhuzh and a pull so I don't have a big space here between my 2 loops. I want these to come back together. Then I can just yarn over, pull through both of those loops, and I've joined with a single crochet. I can just go ahead and weave this end in when I'm all done. Now that is our first stitch for the round, so I do want to go ahead and move my stitch marker on up to that first stitch. There we go. Now, very easy first round here of our mesh. We're simply going to single crochet in each stitch around. As I say, the main thing is to make sure you're working into round 13 and not into round 12. We want to make sure that those tops of those loops that have been pushed forward by our back post stitches stay unworked. Those are our ornamental bit, gives us just sort of a nice visual separation between the mesh and the bottom sections of our bag. So as I say, we just single crochet in each stitch around. When we get to the end of this round, we will join with a slip stitch and turn. So here we are at the end of round 1. You can see I've joined with a slip stitch, and now we're ready for round 2 of our mesh. And this is where we're going to turn and work from the inside or wrong side of our bag. As you keep doing this, if you find it's easier to just go ahead and fully turn it wrong side out as you work the wrong side rounds, then that's perfectly fine. You can just always turn it right side out before you use it. So let's go ahead and begin round 2. We're going to start with a chainless starting double crochet, and that's my favorite double crochet substitute. If you don't like using this one, you can use your preferred method or simply chain 3, which is sort of the standard double crochet turning chain first double crochet of the round. To make the chainless starting double crochet, I'm going to pull my loop on my hook here up to about the height of a double crochet. I'm going to secure the top of that loop with my finger, yarn over with the loop itself. I'm going to go ahead and insert right in that first stitch. So handy to have that stitch marker there. Yarn over, pull that loop up and through the stitch. Yarn over, pull through that loop and behind the looped yarn over. Then I will finally release the top of that loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. This is my new first stitch of the round, my double crochet. Some people prefer something called a stacked single crochet. Some people, like I say, just prefer a chain 3. If you want to do that, that's fine. Just make sure to put your stitch marker in the top of that third chain. Then, to continue on with the rest of our round, we're going to chain 1 and skip the next stitch. Then we begin our repeat that takes us the rest of the way around this round. We double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, and skip the stitch after that. Double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, skip the stitch after that. That's all we do all the way around. And an easy way to help you keep track of your bag and make sure you haven't missed anything is that all our double crochet, our big mesh rounds, are going to be worked from the wrong side of our bag. And all our single crochet rounds, for the mesh section at least, are going to be worked from the outside of our bag. So you can see how the double crochet, chain 1, skip 1 here creates this really beautiful and simple open mesh. We're going to continue this all the way around. We'll end up chaining 1, skipping that last stitch, and then joining to our first double crochet or the top of our chain 3. So I'll see you when we get there. So here I am at the end of round 2. You can see I've got my chain 1 here. We're going to skip that last stitch. So what I like to do here is go ahead and move that stitch marker right up to that chain 1 space. There we go. And I managed to grab the hook before it rolled away. There we go. So I've got my chain 1, I've got that marked, and now I'm going to go ahead and join to the top of my chainless starting double crochet, my chain 3, however you began the round. And that is what it should look like at the end of round 2. And now we're ready for round 3 of the mesh. We're going to chain 1, and again, we're going to turn. We're going to be doing a single crochet round, so that means we're back on the right side or outside of our bag. Now, because we've turned, you see we've got that chain 1 space marked. That's where we put that first single crochet. I like to go right into the chain space. It's quick and it's easy. Some people really prefer the look when they work into the chain itself. If that's what you prefer, that's fine, and it's totally up to you. Make your bag your own. But for me, I'm going to work right into that chain space. Like I say, quick and easy. So we put our first stitch there. Our next stitch goes into the top of that double crochet. And then that's just what we do all the way around. Single crochet in the chain space, single crochet in the top of the double crochet. And we should be back to having a total of 88 single crochets at the end of this round. Alrighty, so I just wanted to show you here for at the end of round 3, our last single crochet will be in the top of a double crochet, and then we'll join to that slip stitch join to the single crochet that was worked into that chain space, like so. Then, of course, we're ready to turn and do another one of those double crochet rows. So for rounds 4 through 23 of the bag, we are just going to repeat rounds 2 and 3 of the mesh. You can see that right here on our original. There's that single crochet we started with, double crochet row, single crochet, double, single, double, all the way up. And this is another place where you can customize your bag. I found that for me, 23 total rows was a nice even number, made a nice shape-sized bag. But again, if you want your bag shorter or taller, feel free to adjust the number of rows that you have right here. You just want to make sure that you end with a single crochet round at the top. Now we're ready to add the top and handles to our bag. We're going to start again with our color A or our first color, or if you want, of course, you can use whichever color you like. And I'm going to join again from the right side of the bag. Remember, we ended up on a single crochet row, which means we ended on the right side of the bag. But again, we want to start from the right side of the bag for round 1 of our top and handles. So I've got my slip knot here already on my hook, and I'm going to go ahead and join right to that first marked stitch there, our first stitch of the round with a single crochet, just as I did before. Then, of course, I can go ahead and move that stitch marker right on up to our new first stitch here. There we go. And then for this round, we very simply single crochet in each stitch around and join with a slip stitch when you get to the end. So I'll see you when we get to the end here of round 1 of the top and handles. So that's what it looks like at the end of round 1 of the top and handles. Rounds 2 through 6, we're just going to chain 1, don't forget to do your turn, and single crochet in each stitch around, just like when we were doing the base. So again, just make sure to turn at the end of every round and maintain your stitch count. So here we are looking at the top of the finished bag. And after making rounds 1 through 6 there, you'll be right at this line right here. So this is where we split to make the handles, or rather where we prep to split to make the handles in round 7. So when you've finished round 6, that's when you're going to pull back out your stitch markers and you're going to mark specific stitches around round 6. Now, obviously I don't have enough stitches here on my little one to do the same number of counts, but our seam is right over here. And as we go around, we'll mark stitches number 11, 32, flip it over, 55, and 76. After you have those 4 stitches marked, let's go ahead and actually put a couple of sort of false stitches on this one, if you will, to demonstrate with. Because what you want to do is after you've counted out and laid out those stitches, you're going to need to check your work, because your gauge and my gauge are going to be 2 different things, very simply. Now, because we've been joining and turning at the end of every round, we should have a really straight seam, but simply the variations of, anything from weather to mood to the type of yarn you're using can change things a little bit. So I want you to be happy with your bag. So what I want you to do is after you've marked those 4 stitches, lay it out flat, just like you see right here. It's going to look more like this. There we go. Fold it over. This is what it's going to look like, and you're going to have those 4 stitch markers. I want you to lay it out really flat. Make sure you can use the bottom as a guide to make sure it's nice and flat. And then you're going to want to see how those 4 stitch markers line up. Are they right on top of each other, or are they slightly offset? You'll have the same number of stitches here on each side. You should have the same number of stitches in between the stitch markers on each handle, but that's going to mark where we take off and make those handles with our stitches. So like I say, everybody's a little bit different. Believe it or not, I seem to have just blindly put these in pretty good. But if these were slightly off, like, if you lay it out and you realize, oh gosh, this one's, way over here, then you realize, okay, I need to do some counting, do a little math, figure it out, make sure that mine are going to end up in just the right spot. Again, everybody's hand is just a little bit different. And when you're making a handmade item, it's a good idea to just take your time with it, lay it out, and make sure those handles are going to be right where you want them to be. This is also where you need to decide if you are going to use a different style of handle. If you don't want to chain on or make the sort of integrated handles that you see right here, then this is where you can adjust the pattern and create holes to add on purchased handles, or perhaps crochet some tabs if you want to have sort of the tab style handles. If you're making it your own, this is another spot where you can do so. So now we're ready to begin round 7. We have the first and last stitch marked and the 4 stitches that we're going to use to help us lay out our handles. I'm going to start with a chain 1, and again, I want you to notice we're on the right side of the bag here for round 7. I'm going to single crochet in that first stitch, and if you want to use, special stitch markers or different colors of stitch markers to help you sort of set things aside, that can be a good idea. If you find yourself getting confused, I'll go ahead and move to a bright red here for our first stitch of the round. And then what I'm going to do is single crochet in each stitch to that first marked stitch. So that means I'm going to single crochet in every stitch before we get to that marked stitch. Now, you're going to have, obviously, on your full-size bag here, quite a few more till you get to that first marked stitch. When we get to that first marked stitch, we do single crochet in it. I'm going to go ahead and move my stitch marker on up into that stitch right there, just to help me find it. Then I'm going to chain 40. And chaining 40 rather, is what gives me the length of the handle that you've seen on that bag. This is, again, customize it. You can make a longer handle by chaining more. You can make a shorter handle by chaining less. Just make sure if you change the number to take a note so you can make sure you do the same number of chains for the other handle. Whatever you do, you want them to be the same size. So for our little sample here, I'm just going to do, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That'll be easy to remember. When you've got your chain of 40, or again, whatever length you want your handle to be, that's where we come back in. We're going to skip all those stitches in between and single crochet in the second marked stitch right there. Okay, my stitch marker wants to be in the way, so I'm going to move it on out of the way. And we just single crochet right in that chain. So one thing you want to do after you've made that single crochet is go back and double check. Make sure you don't have any twists in that chain. You want to make sure, if you need to, lay it out on the table. You can straighten it out before you make that second single crochet there. And just make sure it's nice and smooth. Once you've done that, we can go ahead and put our stitch marker in that stitch, like so. And then we simply single crochet on around until we come to another stitch marker. And then we can begin our second handle. So again, you'll have a few more to make. You can pause and catch up if you need to. I'm going to get there pretty quickly here on my little sample. There we are. So I've come to my third marked stitch. So I want to stitch right into that marked stitch. I'm going to move that stitch marker right on up into that stitch so it's handy there. And here's where I want to, again, chain 40 for the length shown in the pattern, or if you're altering it, chain however many you did for the first side. Now, we are going to be working back into these chains, so we don't want them to be super tight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, I've done 8 again for my little sample here. Again, you should have 40 for the full size. Then we're going to skip all these stitches and come on over and single crochet in this stitch. Again, take the time, make sure you haven't got any twists. If you're doing a really long chain and you're holding your project up like this, it's very common for them to spin as you're working. That's normal, but it's a very easy way to end up with those twists in your chain. So it's a good idea to stop and take a moment and make sure it's untwisted. Then we can single crochet right in that fourth marked stitch there. There we go. Double check our chain, looks good. And move that stitch marker up as well. Let's see, get that in there a little bit better. There we go. And then to finish up round 7, we simply single crochet in each remaining stitch. And then we can join with our slip stitch. Almost there, so let's just go ahead and do that together here. Oh, doesn't want to fit with the stitch marker in there. I'm going to switch this one out to red too. I'll make red for my beginning and last stitch of each round just to visually help me, although they're along the side, so that's a good visual help as well. Get that in there. There we go. Get that stitch marked. Like so. And now we can join with our slip stitch. There we go. So now, at the end of round 7, let me set that down there, you can see we've made our 2 handles. So from here, we're really just going to be building up the height of our top and giving ourselves a more substantial handle. Now we're ready for round 8. We're going to turn again and work from the inside of the bag for this round. I've got my chain 1 made, and I'm just going to single crochet in each stitch until I get to 1 stitch remaining before that chain 40. So that would be our marked stitch right there. So I'm going to move this stitch marker, this first one, up to our first stitch. Focus on that first. There we go. And then just single crochet in each stitch up until we get to that stitch marker there. So we're coming back the other direction here from the inside. You can see I've got our first marked stitch there. So I'm going to single crochet in the stitch right before it. Then 1 stitch remains, you can see, before our chain 40 or our big chain there. So what I want to do here is single crochet 2 together in the next chain in that next single crochet and that first chain. So I'm going to insert my hook in that marked stitch. I'm going to move the stitch marker out of the way now. That last, oh, there we go, didn't want to open. That last single crochet before our chains, pull up a loop. Then I'm going to go to that next chain. I'm going to take my time to get into the chain properly here. There we are. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Then I can yarn over and pull through all 3 to finish my single crochet 2 together. So a standard single crochet 2 together, but it's worked in that last stitch, that last single crochet, and the first chain. I'm going to go ahead and mark that stitch. I'm going to place my marker right there. Then I am going to single crochet in each remaining chain across until I get to that next marked stitch there at the end. So just take your time, go into each chain properly. This is just a little sample one, so I'm not going to take as much time here. I prefer to work under the top 2 loops of the chains for this section, but whatever makes you happy. And again, I'm not fussing with it right now because it's just a little sample sized one. It'll be a ludicrously capacious bag for a Barbie. So we'll just work our way across here. There we are. Okay, so we have our final stitch there, it looks like. That's the single crochet before we head on. Now, I've worked in that last chain right there. I should not have done that. We needed to stop. Leave 1 chain before the marked stitch. Why are we doing that? Well, we want to mimic what we did on this side. We want our handles to be worked off evenly. So we've got 1 chain and then our marked single crochet right there. So now I'm going to single crochet 2 together. First, I'm going to go into that next chain, pull up our loop, then go into that single crochet. Pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 to finish. And then I'll move that stitch marker right on up to the top of that one. Now I want to repeat that on the other side. So I'm just going to single crochet in each stitch until I get over to the next marked stitch. Remember, we're on the inside of the bag right now, so if it's easier for you to just go ahead and turn the whole bag wrong side out while you make these wrong side out rounds, if you will, then that is perfectly fine. Whatever makes it easiest for you. So now you can see we're coming to our second handle here. We've got that next marked stitch. So I'm going to take the stitch marker out of my way. We're beginning at the beginning section of a handle here. So I'm going to go into that last single crochet and pull up a loop and then go into the next chain and pull up a loop and then yarn over and pull through all 3 and place a stitch marker in the top of that stitch. Then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to single crochet in each chain across until there's 1 chain left before the marked stitch. So it's a little tricky. While the stitching for this pattern has been mostly basic stitches, we've had a little bit of fun with our post stitches. And single crochet 2 together is not in itself, a difficult stitch, but you do want to sort of maintain an idea. Be thinking about where you are in the pattern as you're making these handles. We've come up to that stitch before the marked stitch here on the second half of our handle. So that means we're going to go into that next chain to pull up a loop, then into that final marked stitch to pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through 3. And then we can mark the top of that decrease as well. Get under those loops. There we go. And then simply finish off your round with a single crochet in each remaining chain. Or each remaining stitch, I should say. I've got my red stitch marker there. I know it's the end of my round. So I can go ahead and mark that one as well. And then join with a slip stitch to our first stitch. And now we're ready for rounds 9 and 10. Actually, we're ready for rounds 9, 10, and 11, which are all going to be the same. We're going to chain 1 and turn, or turn and chain 1, and then we are going to single crochet in each stitch until 1 stitch remains before the stitch marker. So that would be our first, handle marked stitch. Our first and last stitch of the round, they aren't considered marked stitches for the purposes of pattern writing. This is just for us to make our lives a little easier. So on our little sample here, I'm already there. There is 1 stitch remaining before the stitch marker. So now what I'm going to do is single crochet in the next stitch and the marked stitch. Pulling up a loop from each, yarn over, pull through all 3 for our decrease. Mark the top of that single crochet 2 together. Then go back to our instructions here. We single crochet in each stitch up to the next marked stitch. So this one becomes a little bit easier. Rounds 9, 10, and 11, we can lean on our stitch markers a little bit more. I altered it just a little bit easy to make it a little bit easier for these rounds. So now we've gone right up to our marked stitch here. And then we are going to single crochet 2 together in the marked stitch and the next stitch. So yarn over and pull up a loop from that marked stitch, and then pull up a loop from the second one there. Yarn over and pull through all 3, single crochet 2 together. Then we're right back to single crocheting in each stitch around. As we come up to that second handle, remember that we are going to single crochet until 1 stitch remains before this stitch marker right there. Then we single crochet 2 together. The second half of that should be in the marked stitch. So we move our stitch marker on up to this one. And then we single crochet across again until we get to the end. So as sort of a reminder to help you keep it in your head for rounds 9, 10, and 11, when we're at the beginning of a handle, we're going to single crochet 2 together in the stitch before and the marked. As we come to the end, it's the marked and the stitch after. We just want to make sure that those decreases are spread out evenly. We don't want sort of one to be on the body of the bag and the other one to be worked on the handle. So I'm just working my way on across here. And here we are, that last marked stitch. So we're going to go in there, yarn over and pull up a loop, get that stitch marker out of the way. Then into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3 to finish our single crochet 2 together. And then just single crochet in each remaining stitch and join with a slip stitch. So that's how we do rounds 9, 10, and 11. So rounds 9, 10, and 11 finished giving us this beautiful width for the top of our bag and our handles. At the end of round 11, you should be back on the right side. And now we have just a couple of finishing touches. For round 12, we're going to stay on the right side, so we do not turn at the end of round 11, and we're simply going to slip stitch in each stitch around. This gives us a really beautiful finishing touch for our bag. So we just go right to that next stitch and start slip stitching all the way around. After you've slip stitched all the way around the top of the bag, I like to rejoin my yarn again from the right side and do a similar slip stitch right around each opening. Let's look at what that looked like here on the finished bag. You can see here is that final round of slip stitch right around the top, and then the same thing right around the opening. I just find it gives it a nicer finished edge, but of course it's optional. And of course you can mix up the colors and the finish details to make your own matcha cream tote bag. And that's how to crochet the matcha cream tote bag. Once again, you can find the link in the description or simply go to your favorite search engine and type it in. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.